Let me start with a feeling you know a little too well. You bought something. It broke. Or it disappointed you. Or you got it home, opened the box, and realized it was nothing like what you thought. And it's just sitting there now. In the garage, in a closet, on a shelf. A little monument to money you feel like you wasted. Too much hassle to deal with. Probably too late to return. So you tell yourself you'll get to it eventually, and you never do. And slowly that pile of should have returned it stuff grows, quietly representing hundreds of dollars you'll never see again. Here's what should make you angry. At most stores, that feeling is justified. The receipt's gone, the window's closed, you're stuck. But at Costco, a huge amount of that wasted money was never actually gone. You've been sitting on refunds you were fully entitled to claim, walking past one of the most generous return policies in all of retail because you assumed it worked like everywhere else. It doesn't. And the shoppers who understand how it really works are quietly getting their money back on things you'd never dream of returning. Tonight, I'm handing you 17 of those return policy tricks, the ones that genuinely work, that put real money back in your pocket, counted down one by one. And then, because this matters just as much, I'm going to show you the 4 things that cross the line. The 4 moves that don't just get a return denied. They can get your membership flagged, revoked, and banned for life. People do these without even realizing it, and one day the card just stops working. You need to know where that line is. And there's one trick coming up, around the middle of this list, that lets you return something you've already used, already worn out, sometimes years later, and still get your money. Most people flat out don't believe it until they've done it. We'll get there. Stay with me. Let's start the countdown. Number 17. There's no receipt required, because they already have it. Here's the first thing that trips everybody up. You go to return something, you panic, you start tearing the house apart looking for a receipt you threw away months ago. Stop. In most cases, you don't need it. When you buy something on your membership, that purchase is tied to your account. The store can look up your history and find the transaction without the little paper slip you lost weeks ago. That membership card in your wallet isn't just a key to the door. It's a running record of everything you've ever bought there. So the number one reason people don't return things, "I lost the receipt, so what's the point?" is often no barrier at all. Walk up, hand them the card, and let them find it. The paper you were stressing about was never the thing that mattered. But that record keeping cuts both ways, and it sets up number 16 perfectly. Because the same system that helps you return things is also quietly watching how much you return. Number 16. Most general merchandise has no strict time limit. This is the one that genuinely stuns people. At most stores, you've got 30 days, maybe 90 if you're lucky, and after that, you're on your own. Costco is famously, almost shockingly, different on a huge range of general merchandise. For many everyday items, there simply isn't a hard clock ticking against you. That thing you bought and stashed and forgot about. Months later, in a lot of cases, it can still go back. The policy is built around satisfaction rather than a rigid countdown, which is why shoppers regularly return things long after any other store would have laughed them out the door. Now, this is generosity, not a loophole to abuse, and I'll get to where that line is later. But the everyday truth is that most people give up on a return years too early, out of pure assumption. Don't assume. Ask. That no time limit idea has one massive exception, though. And number 15 is the exception that trips up more shoppers than any other. Number 15. Electronics run on a different, shorter clock. Here's where people get burned by assuming the generous policy covers everything. It doesn't. Big electronics, TVs, computers, tablets, phones, cameras, major tech, typically run on a much shorter, tighter return window than the rest of the store. Why? Because electronics lose value fast and get abused in returns constantly, so the store carved them out into their own category with a firm, limited time frame. Blow past that window on a TV thinking, Costco takes anything back anytime, and you'll be stuck holding it. So the trick here is simple but crucial. Know which bucket your item is in before you delay. If it's a piece of major tech and something's wrong with it, deal with it now, inside that window. Don't let the store's famous generosity lull you into missing the one category where the clock actually runs fast. And speaking of tech, number 14 is a hidden perk buried inside those electronics purchases that most buyers never even find out they have. Number 14. Electronics often come with extended coverage you didn't pay extra for. Here's a quiet one. When you buy certain electronics there, the coverage on that item is often extended well beyond the standard manufacturer warranty, automatically, at no extra charge, just for buying it through them. On top of that, there's frequently free technical support to go with it. Think about what that means. That TV or laptop that died a year in, that you assumed you were stuck with because the normal warranty expired. It may still be covered. People throw away or replace electronics all the time without ever checking whether the store that sold it to them would have fixed or refunded it for free. The trick is to check the coverage before you give up on a dead device. That built-in protection is something you already paid for the moment you bought it there, and almost nobody remembers to use it. Now, number 13 moves out of electronics and into something you'd never in a million years think you could return. This is where it starts to feel almost too good to be true. Number 13. Food. Yes, food can often go back. Here's one that stops people cold. You bought something to eat, it was spoiled, or stale, or just genuinely disgusting, or it made you regret the purchase the second you tasted it. At any other store, that's a shrug and a loss. Not here. Costco is known for standing behind the food it sells, and shoppers regularly bring back grocery items they weren't satisfied with, even partially used ones, and get refunded. If that rotisserie chicken was off, if the giant bag of fruit turned the next day, if the bulk snack was stale, that's not money you have to eat. The reason this feels so strange is that we're all trained to believe food is final. Once it's bought, it's yours. But the store's whole reputation is built on satisfaction, and that extends to the stuff on your plate. The trick is simply knowing it's allowed, because the shopper who knows brings it back, and the one who doesn't quietly throws money in the trash. That satisfaction principle gets even more powerful with number 12, because it's the one I promised you. The one most people don't believe until they've done it themselves. Number 12. You can return things you've already used, sometimes heavily. This is the trick that breaks people's brains. At most stores, used means unreturnable. The tag's off, the box is open, you wore it, you used it. Game over. Costco operates on a different philosophy for much of what it sells. Because the policy centers on whether you're satisfied, shoppers have found they can return items they've genuinely used, clothing they've worn and washed, household goods they've had going for a while, things that are clearly not brand new, and still be made whole if the product let them down. Now, let me be clear, because this matters for the second half of this video. This is meant for genuine dissatisfaction. The thing wore out too fast, fell apart, didn't perform. It is not a free rental program, and treating it like one is exactly how you end up in the banned section later. But used honestly, this is one of the most shopper-friendly policies in retail. The thing you assumed was too far gone to return? It might not be. Now, number 11 takes that idea and stretches it across years on some of the most surprising products in the entire store. Number 11. Certain big-ticket items can go back far longer than you'd ever guess. You'd assume there's some quiet cut-off, a year, maybe two, after which anything is obviously too old to return. And for a lot of general merchandise, shoppers have brought things back well beyond what any reasonable person would expect, because on many items there simply isn't that hard deadline. Furniture you ended up hating. A household item that failed long after you bought it. Things that would be an automatic, absolutely not, anywhere else. The store's reputation was built precisely on this kind of standing behind the product generosity. The catch, and there's always a catch, is that this runs entirely on good faith. It works because most people don't exploit it, which is the perfect bridge to understanding the line you're about to learn not to cross. But before that, there's more money to claim. Number 10 is about getting cash back without returning anything at all. Number 10. If the price drops right after you buy, you may get the difference back. Here's a gut punch we've all felt. You buy something, and days later you spot it cheaper, on sale, marked down, dropped in price. That sick if I'd just waited feeling. At Costco, in many cases, you don't have to wait, and you don't have to feel sick. If the price drops shortly after your purchase, shoppers have gone back with their receipt and had the difference refunded, no return required. You keep the item, they hand you back the gap. Details and timeframes vary, so this isn't a blanket guarantee, but the principle is one almost nobody uses. Most people would never dream of walking back in over a price change. It feels petty, or not worth it. So the money just evaporates. But your receipt is a live document for a little while after you buy. Not a dead one the second you leave the lot. That your receipt still has power idea leads straight into number 9, a return move most people don't even realize is on the table. Number 9. You don't always have to drag it back to the warehouse. Here's a barrier that stops a lot of returns before they start: the sheer hassle of loading something big and bulky back into the car and hauling it across town. But for items bought online, and for certain large or heavy products, there are return paths that don't require you to physically wrestle the thing back to the store yourself. Shoppers have arranged returns for big items without the dreaded solo furniture into the trunk struggle. The point is this: it's too big and heavy to bother returning is often a barrier you invented, not one the store actually put there. Before you resign yourself to keeping something you don't want because moving it is a nightmare, check whether there's an easier path. Frequently there is. Now, number 8 is about a benefit that isn't a return at all, but it saves you from needing one. Number 8. The membership fee itself is refundable if you're not satisfied. Here's a safety net most members have no idea they're standing on. The annual membership fee, the price of admission itself, is something the store will refund if you're genuinely not satisfied with your membership. Think about what that removes. The biggest hesitation people have about joining is, what if I don't shop there enough to make it worth it? But if the membership doesn't pay off for you, that fee isn't a gamble you lose. It's refundable. You're essentially able to try the whole thing risk-free. For the shopper who's been on the fence for years, worried about wasting the annual cost, this quietly erases the risk. And for the member who's moving or whose life changed, it means that fee was never truly locked away. Almost nobody knows this one, and it's one of the most reassuring policies in the whole place. Number 7 is a small, specific trick that saves you a real headache on one very common purchase. Number 7. Tyres and installed items have their own smooth path. When you buy something like tyres there, they come bundled with services and protections that make the whole ownership experience, including issues, adjustments, and returns, far smoother than buying them at a random shop. The point isn't the specific product, it's the principle. Certain departments, tyres, optical, and others, have their own dedicated service and return processes that are often more generous and more hands-on than the general store policy. If you bought something from one of those specialty areas and there's a problem, don't assume you're dealing with the standard counter. There may be a dedicated, smoother path built just for that category. Knowing which items come with their own special handling means you get taken care of instead of getting stuck. And that theme, special categories with special rules, is exactly what makes number 6 so important, because getting it wrong here is where people start to run into trouble. Number 6. A few specific categories have real limits. Know them cold. Alright, this is the pivot point. Everything so far has been about how generous the policy is. But there's a short list of items where that generosity narrows sharply, and assuming they take anything back on these is how good, honest shoppers accidentally get frustrated. Or worse. Certain categories carry their own restrictions. Some items, think particular high-value goods, certain electronics as we covered, items with special authentication like fine jewellery, and things like alcohol and tobacco where local laws control returns, don't follow the anytime no problem pattern. They have their own rules, time frames, or conditions. The trick is knowing the difference between the everyday item you can return with ease and the special category item that comes with strings. Get that distinction right, and you'll never have an awkward, denied return. Get it wrong and you'll either lose out or start drifting toward the behavior that gets people flagged, which is exactly where we're heading after the next few. Number 5 is a mindset shift more than a single trick, and it's the one that changes how you shop entirely. Number 5. The policy is insurance you already paid for, so buy braver. Here's a way of thinking that separates the shoppers who get full value from the ones who don't. That generous return policy isn't just a way to fix mistakes after the fact. It's a form of insurance baked into your membership, and it should change how you buy in the first place. That expensive item you keep hesitating on because, what if I don't like it? The satisfaction policy is precisely the cushion that makes trying it low risk. The people who understand this shop with confidence, knowing that if something genuinely disappoints, they're covered. The people who don't hesitate, miss out, and never enjoy the very protection they're paying for every year. Used honestly, and I keep saying honestly for a reason you're about to fully understand, this policy means you can try things you'd otherwise talk yourself out of. That's a benefit sitting in your wallet right now, unused. Now, number 4 is about timing your returns in a way that makes the whole process painless. Number 4. Return at the right time and the whole thing takes minutes. Here's a practical trick that costs nothing and saves your sanity. The return counter, like the rest of the store, has rhythms. Weekend afternoons, it's a mob scene. Long lines, harried staff, the whole thing feels like a chore, and that friction is exactly what makes people give up on returns they're entitled to. Go at a quiet time instead, early on a weekday, right at opening, or during the slow midweek hours. And a return that would have eaten your afternoon takes just a few minutes. Calm staff, no line, no stress. The easier you make the process on yourself, the more likely you are to actually claim the refunds you're owed, instead of letting stuff pile up in the garage. The single biggest reason people don't return things isn't the policy, it's the perceived hassle. Remove the hassle by timing it right, and suddenly every one of these tricks becomes something you'll actually use. And number 3 removes another excuse people hide behind. Number 3. Missing the box or the packaging usually isn't the deal breaker you think. I threw the box away, so I can't return it. How many things have you kept purely because of that belief? For a great deal of general merchandise, the original packaging isn't the hard requirement people assume it is. Shoppers regularly return items they've long since unboxed, without the original carton, and are still taken care of. Because, again, the record of your purchase lives on your membership, not on the box you recycled. So that appliance, that gadget, that household item you've been stuck with because the packaging is long gone. The missing box was never the wall you thought it was. Don't let an empty recycling bin talk you out of a refund you're entitled to. Number 2 is the final works trick, and it ties the whole first half together. Number 2. When in doubt, just ask. The answer is yes, more than you'd believe. Here's the meta trick underneath all 16 of the others. The single biggest thing standing between shoppers and the money they're owed isn't the policy. It's the assumption that the answer will be no, so they never even ask. They assume the receipt is required. They assume the window's closed. They assume used means unreturnable, that food is final, that the box was mandatory, that it's too old, too big, too much hassle. And every one of those assumptions, as we've seen, is wrong more often than it's right. The store's entire reputation is built on satisfaction, and the people who simply walk up and ask get taken care of at a rate that would shock the people standing at home with a garage full of unreturnable stuff. So the number 2 trick is the simplest and most powerful of all. Stop pre-denying yourself. Let the store tell you no. You'll be amazed how often it says yes instead. And that brings us to number 1, which isn't a trick at all. It's the line. Cross it and every single benefit we just covered disappears in an instant. Number 1. The policy runs entirely on trust. And that trust is watched. Here's the truth underneath all 17 tricks. This entire generous system, the no receipt returns, the no time limit merchandise, the used item refunds, the food, all of it, exists only because most people don't abuse it. It's built on good faith. And the store, through your membership, quietly keeps a record of exactly how much good faith you're running on. That generosity is a gift extended to honest shoppers. And the fastest way to lose it, to lose all of it, permanently, is to treat it like a loophole instead of a courtesy. Which is exactly why you need to know the 4 moves that cross the line. Because people make these without even realizing they've become a problem. And then one day the card simply stops working at the door. Let's talk about the 4 things that get you banned. Banned move number 4. Serial returning, treating the store like a free rental service. This is the most common way honest-seeming people get flagged. They buy something, use it for the event, the season, the project, then return it. And they do it again. And again. The party supplies returned after the party. The tool returned after the one job. The outfit returned after it's been worn once for the occasion. Each individual return feels justified in the moment. But remember, your history is tracked. A pattern of buying, using and returning builds a picture over time, and that picture reads as exactly what it is. Using the store as a free rental library. Do it enough, and the generosity that makes this channel's whole list possible gets pulled out from under you. The policy is for genuine dissatisfaction, not free temporary ownership. Banned move number 3. Abusing the no time limit policy on obviously worn out goods. There's a difference between returning something that failed too soon and returning something you rode into the ground for years and now want free money for. Bringing back an item you've thoroughly used up, long after it delivered exactly the value you paid for, isn't a satisfaction return. It's trying to get a product for free after consuming its whole useful life. The no time limit generosity was designed for the item that genuinely let you down, not the one that served you faithfully for years until it naturally wore out. Push that boundary repeatedly, and it reads as abuse, and the flags start going up on your account. Honest longevity returns are one thing. Draining the value out of things and then demanding a refund is another entirely. Banned move number 2. Returning consumed or clearly abused food and goods in bad faith. We covered that food can often be returned when you're genuinely dissatisfied, the spoiled item, the off product. That's real, and it's fair. But there's a bad faith version that crosses the line hard, eating or using nearly all of something and then bringing back the empty remains for a refund, over and over. The occasional genuinely bad product is what the policy is for. Systematically consuming things and then returning them for your money back is fraud-adjacent behaviour, and it's exactly the kind of pattern that gets an account marked. The store extends enormous trust on perishables specifically because most people only use it when something's truly wrong. Be one of those people. And the number 1 thing that gets you banned: a return history that flags your account for abuse. Here's how it actually ends for people. It's rarely one dramatic incident. It's the accumulation. A return rate wildly out of line with normal shopping, a pattern the tracked system eventually surfaces. And when an account gets flagged as abusing the policy, the consequence can be severe. The membership itself revoked. Banned. The card that opened the door to every deal, every service, every one of these return benefits, deactivated. And here's the part that stings. Once you're out for abuse, you may not simply be able to walk back in and rejoin like nothing happened. That's the real price. Every legitimate trick on this list, every dollar of value in that membership, all of it rests on staying on the right side of a line the system is quietly measuring at all times. So use these 17 tricks fully. Claim every refund you're honestly owed. The store built its entire reputation on giving it to you, and most people leave that money on the table out of pure assumption. But respect the 4 lines. Because the whole reason this policy is so generous is that it's built on trust. and the shoppers who honor that trust get to enjoy it for life, while the ones who exploit it lose everything the card was worth. And that's it from this one. If this opened your eyes to money you've been leaving behind, do me a favor. Give it a like, share it with someone who shops there, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.